Okay, so everyone should see ClockOn. I've logged in here. All right, so with the roster publishing functions, it allows you to sort of build a roster in the roster screen, make adjustments and changes without your employees being able to view the rosters from the ClockOn Go app or the web portal. It also means no alerts in the background are being created when they're unpublished, the shifts, and also no timesheets or anything are getting created until you publish that particular shift, and then that becomes then live and ready to go for people to see. So enabling that, if people haven't done that yet, is if you go to your setup tab and under the system setup, now you just need to make sure you don't have any other windows open when you go into the system setup there. So we click on the system setup, and there's a new tab now where there's the rosters, and there's a little tick box for roster publish. So you just tick that and that'll enable roster publishing within the system. The other side to it is we've got a new security role as well. And so it might be that, for instance, you might have your roster officer wanting to build the rosters, adjust them, get them ready, but you may have sort of a higher supervisor or manager that wants to publish those particular rosters, and then that way, so they can build it and then someone else can publish it. So in the security roles, we've got a can publish. I'll just highlight below because it's a little bit hard to see when it's highlighted. So turning this on will make sure that anyone who has that security role is able to change the state from publish to unpublish and back again. If that's turned off for a particular security role, then they will be able to manipulate unpublished and published shifts, but they won't be able to change the state for that. So in the case, obviously I'm showing you, I've got access to this one. So you can use that security role to make changes. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into the roster. All right. Fantastic. Okay, so in the roster screen here, once you've enabled roster publishing, you'll see in the top right-hand corner, there is now a new icon under the View tab called Publish Shifts. And so here we can either publish selected or unpublished selected shifts, or we can publish or unpublish all of the shifts. So you can have a combination within your roster of both published and unpublished shifts. So you'll see in the roster screen here, shifts like this particular pharmacist shift here has got a black border around it. So that's a published shift. And the ones below which are red, they're the unpublished shifts. So you can also see down the bottom, there's some information here around the roster period that you've got loaded, but also how many published and unpublished shifts you've got within that period. So you can also use the shift filters up the top to view just all of the published shifts that you've got, or as well as the unpublished shifts here too. So you can view a combination of what you want to look at. So we've got the button up the top to change shifts from being published and unpublished. We can also right click on a shift and see the published and unpublished functions here. So whenever a shift is published, if I was to adjust that shift, and if I save my roster here, you'll notice on the message center, we've got an alert. So just opening up here, any changes to a published shift within the roster screen is going to create a pending message that the shift's been moved, from a particular shift's been moved, or there's been an adjustment, or something's deleted or removed. And with these pending messages, we can then send them to the person that that pending message is for. So if we move that back. However, for an unpublished shift, if I was to move and I press, so we've got one here for Edith and one here for Higgins that I've moved both. When I resave the roster publish, we can come into the message center again, and there's only the one pending, which was Edith's one that we had changed, but not the unpublished shift that was there. So if we now right click and we publish a shift, making it go live, we can see the black border around that one. When we click on save, jump back into the message center here. Now you can have that message center on another window. If you want, you can move it off screen. Now I've still got the pending one. So there's the Edith one, which I hadn't sent. And now we've got the Kylie one that we've just added. So that's going to notify them that they've been rostered on a particular shift. Now, if I unpublish a shift, so I'm just right clicking, and if I select unpublish on that, and this save button is committing it to memory there. If I jump now into the message center one more time, it's probably not going to be the last time in this session. You see there's another pending message, and it's going to notify them that they've been unassigned to the shift. So it's the same as right clicking and unassigning. You can just unpublish that particular shift. So now with the unpublished shifts, we can shuffle, move, make changes however we need to make those changes, and then click publish, and we can publish all of those shifts. So these will be all published. It'll create a lot of messages, and you can send that bulk change. So once you've built that roster for the week, you can then publish them all and then send all your staff a message to the ClockOn Go app, that published message. Now, when you've got the publish feature on, if you add a new shift, so just right click, adding a shift, it's added an unassigned shift here in the role view, but you'll notice straight away it's been added as an unpublished shift. Even if we're in the employee view screen and I'm to double click and add a shift, it's going to add that as an unpublished shift. So when you have that publishing function enabled, new shifts that get added are going to come in as being unpublished. That's also the same as when you load a template as well, which will load a template shortly, but anything that you've loaded in the template, they'll come through as being unpublished. One other thing, which we'll cover broadcasting shifts later, but if you do add a shift and it's unpublished, you can broadcast it to the ClockOn Go app to see who's available. You just need to be aware, I've just added this shift, I haven't saved it yet, so when I right click on it, there's no broadcast available, but once I save a particular shift, when I right click, broadcast then becomes available, and I'll show you how broadcasting works later on in this session. But yeah, you can broadcast both published and unpublished shifts to try and find who is available for a particular shift. One more thing with published shifts, now when you're printing out the roster reports up the top, so if I just jump back into role view, just holding my finger on control, and I'm just selecting this bottom half of all of these shifts. I'm just going to unpublish the selected shifts and save. Now, if I'm to print out a roster report to have a look at what it looks like, only the published shifts are going to show on that report. So it's just building the report at the moment. Won't be a moment. So you'll see that only those shifts that are published are going to show up on the printed roster reports, and the ones that also you can use from the reports manager to email out to your staff. So that's roster publishing. I think it can be quite useful. I've had people using the templates in the past to do a similar sort of thing, but now you can do it all on that roster screen. All right, so now I want to sort of have a look at the component templates. Now, hopefully everyone who's doing rosters is using templates. So on the template tab, you can build up, you'll have a list of templates here. clicking the Add Edit Template button converts the roster screen into the template editor, and we can use the Open and Merge template features to have a look at what the templates are. So the main template I'm using is this store-wide one at the moment. So that's got all the roles in it. Now, component templates are normally, they differ from your normal week 1, week 2 ones, and they normally sort of cover a subset or a component of a complete roster. So you might use it to break down for different departments or roles. So for instance, I've just got here a pharmacist template. So it's everyone within that pharmacist department, and I'm just looking at that. Or I might have the beauty and naturopath component. So I've broken them down into little ones. So for those larger organizations, sort of potentially the medical centers and the pubs and clubs, the guys that are out there, from there, you might be able to do your little components of the templates and just build like a ward one, or the next event type sort of one, or, you know, a high period of work of a high period. But also having little component ones, it means you can sort of build them up as well to create a new template. So that's using the merge template function. So if, for instance, I open the pharmacy one, I've got all my pharmacists in. That's pretty typical. This might not change so much. And I can also bring in the beauty and naturopathy. By using the merge template button, it's going to now overlay it on top. And then I might have the front of shop might be a busy time of year. So I might have just, you know, allocated the front of shop compartment. It might be for Christmas, or it might be a less busy period, sort of mid-year or outside of like a tourist season or something like that. And so I can select that one and merge that template in, and it sort of builds this template from the different components. And now when I save that one, I can create a new template, and just call it store. And so using those smaller components, I'm able to create a new whole template that is there. Now, something else with the component templates that we can do is maybe like a public holiday template. And so I've just built additional staff or additional times that may differ from your normal public holiday, and we've got Easter coming up. So, and I've just built it on the Monday. And so something with the templates that some people may or may not know is that while at the top here we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what it really is within in the roster templates is day 1 of the period, day 2 of the period, day 3 of the period. So by creating a single day, say on the Monday, we then can drop that Monday on any day of the week. So in order to drop that on top of any day of the week, I'm going to jump out of the Add Edit template. No, I'm not going to. Save. So let's say we've got Thursday, Anzac Days coming up, which is a Thursday. So I know the Thursday is not going to have these normal people, so I've just selected the date at the top, and I'm just going to delete all of those shifts on that Thursday. Just going to save it. Now, using the Navigate tab and function, we can change this start date to the day that you want to load that day 1 template. So selecting the 28th, it'll now make, and if I scroll back a little bit, you'll see Thursday is now day 1 in the period that I've got loaded. So not the Monday here, it's the Thursday, and we can tell it's outside the period from these diagonal lines. I can then come into the template, select my public holiday template, and click Open Template, and it'll now load that template, which was on a Monday in the template builder, but because it's the first day of that period, it drops there on that Thursday. I'm going to save that, come back to the Navigate and relook at my week. And you'll see now that Thursday that we've loaded is now midweek. So there's a couple of things that we can do with that. It might be, you might have a special event on. It might be, you know, you're expecting a little bit more traffic on a Friday. Yeah, all sorts of different things. And in this case, in the public holiday, I reshuffled the shifts. You could have made some of them as public holiday leave entries. You could have had all sorts of combinations there on the on what you've got in that template. Say for the special event one, it's just all unassigned. So I haven't made a change. If I go into the add edit template, if I just open it up, I can see that they're just unassigned here on the Monday. I'm not going to save because I haven't made any changes. Comes back in. Yeah, we've got something happening on the Monday. I'm just going to load that up. And here come in the unassigned shifts here. If we change the employee view, they'll all sit up the top here when it's in employee view. And then you can start rostering people on. So I've seen a couple of clubs do that for, you know, they may have a couple of events during the week, and a typical event might have a certain amount or type of staff there. So they'll just drop them on the days when they need to do that on that one. Just taking a step back on loading the templates. So with the open and merge functions, so I might just navigate forward a couple of periods till I get an empty time here. Okay, so when you load a template, using the open template loads it in. If I was to pick another template and use open again without saving in between, it's going to load the different template in there. So it's not going to overlay it, it's going to replace it. Now, if for instance, I open this template, and I might just move into employee view, role view, it just makes it a little bit easier. And I click save in between, I can then pick the different template and use open, and it'll load it on top. If I don't want to save in between, it's the same as, say, selecting and then clicking the merge template. And so that will load that in. So it's sort of open plus save plus open again is the same as open and merge when you're loading multiples of those component templates. So you don't have to just do those component templates within the template editor. You can also build out your weekly rosters using those components as well if they are, say, focusing on specific departments and roles. So I think one example maybe for, say, medical with, I know with, say, some surgeries or some, you know, hospitals that we have on the books, they've got their operating theatres, and they might have operating theatre 1 as one template, operating theatre 2 as another template, and they may not be on every day. So it might be a day 1 with just one theatre, day 1 with day 2 theatre. And so you could build up a big list of templates here. In this case, I've sort of used a naming convention that will sort of order them and keep them in alphabetical order as well. So that's going to be helpful in finding the template that you want to then load in the order that you want to load those particular component templates. All right. Okay, we'll jump now into creating split shifts using the special rates. So I'm just going to navigate back. I don't want to change that. And I just had a template built, so I'm just going to delete this one and reload the template in. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that we can do split shifts. So one way, which is sort of the easiest way to do it, is just right-clicking on a shift, going to the shift, and splitting that shift in two. So if I timeline with Zoom onto here, we'll see that we've got two split shifts. Now, one problem that we find with this is that usually a staff member will clock on that first one, and even though it's going to show that they're doing a different shift on the end, it's going to create a timesheet and they're not going to clock against it. And so you're going to have one timesheet that's got that they finished too late, and then the other timesheet as an error showing that they didn't work at all. So yeah, and in this way we can sort of drag and drop. And so it's going to show that they are doing two different roles there. When you print out the roster, it's going to show that they're doing two different roles, but being two shifts is going to create more work at the timesheet approval stage. So another way to do it is by adding a special rate and using the special rate system within it to create a change in those roles. Now, normally the special rates was added to the system to be able to say if someone works doing, say, higher duties for a couple of hours in a shift, they get paid at a different rate. But we're going to do it that they just get paid at their same rate, and it's just used to change the role and the department for that part of the shift. Now, to do that, there's a few ways. If you right click on the shift and we come into, so there should be on some people you'll have rates, and you can see that we can add different rates. Now on Claire's, my example, she doesn't have this rates available for her to be able to do that. So that means that there's no special rate attached to this particular employee. So in order to do that, we'll need to jump out of the rosters, and under the setup section, we're going to use the rate schedules and the rate manager here, and we're going to add a special rate, and we'll just call it role change, role changes, and we'll come to the special rates tab, and I'm going to add one in. Now you can, some people name them so it's a bit more obvious to have role at the front so you know what role it's being changed to. So, and then we can select the actual department and location and role that this special rate's going to be. And down here, this is very important. We want to keep this at 100%, so make sure that the rate isn't going to change. You're not going to pay them differently. Sorry, I've got to have to change that A. The other way you can do it is you can use this add and minus function and keep that as a 0. I prefer the percentage one just because it sort of shows when you hover on those particular shifts that they're just getting paid at 100%. The plus and minus -0 sort of looks like they're going to get paid $0 for that part of the shift. So it's just more of an aesthetic thing for me on that one. And then we can also add multiple ones of these. So once we've added these special rates, I'm just going to save that. Now you can do that if you've got existing rate sets already assigned to people. You can add those role changes to those existing rate sets from within the roster screen itself. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now I'm just going to quickly use this apply function. So I've selected the role change, going to apply, and I'm just going to apply it to Claire. So then she then has a rate set attached to her. That can also be done from the pay tab on the employee details screen under where the rule set gets added. And I'll jump back into the rosters now. Okay, I'll just jump to employee view just to make it a little bit more obvious. So now here on this particular shift, I can double click, go to the rates, and I can add a rate, and I'm going to use custom times because I don't want it to be for the whole shift here. And I want it to say from 12:30 till 5 o'clock, and I can change that role change to be what it is. And when I click save, you'll notice now that there's a pink line or the color of what that role is on that particular shift. And if I hover on it, you'll see there's the rate role beauty at 100% for that particular time that's on that. Now I'm going to publish all of her shifts. And if I do a quick timeline with Zoom, I can see sort of a better representation of how that role change is going to show on that particular shift. And now when I save that, I'm just going to do a preview of the printouted roster. And you can see on that day, while it was the one shift, it's showing as two different shifts, and this part of it has the 30-minute break in it. Whereas the Thursday, it shows the exact same thing with the two different roles that we've got there, but they're physically different rostered shifts on that Thursday. One thing also for the app, it doesn't show on the roster the same way in the roster component on the app as it does in those printed rosters. So if you are relying on the app to show the staff members that they do have a role change, I would just recommend using this general notes as it shows up there on the timesheet section of the rosters, so they can see it direct from the app. They can email themselves a printout of their roster from the app as well. And when we get into the app, I'll sort of show you where. So, it might be working in. So that'll then notify them when they're in the app to see what's going on. But what this has done is created that single shift for them to clock at the start and the end of their shift. It's also going to do the appropriate costings between the different departments that those roles are when it goes into payroll, and all of your reporting as well. So hopefully that'll speed up anyone that's splitting shifts that'll hopefully speed up the process in your timesheets there. Is there anything else? Oh, so now when I right click, it does have the rates and I can add those. They're predefined already here. So I can quickly add those and then jump in and make changes on that. For someone who already has a rate set attached to them, when I click add, I can use the three little dot ellipsis button here next to the drop down. So here's a list of the ones that we already have. But by clicking that from within the roster screen, I don't have to jump out into the rates manager to be able to add a new one or make any adjustments to existing ones. So I can now add a new role. And that now becomes available in here for what can be selected. When you do make that change, you do just need to re-add the times for that. And you'll see it's just added that new role. So provided they've got a special rates attached to the person, you can then from the roster screen add them or remove them and make changes. And that's also true for the timesheets as well. When you're in a timesheet, you can also add and remove those sorts of things there if you need to from the timesheet window. All right, so moving on to ClockOn Go with the broadcasting of shifts. Sorry, bear with me for a moment. I'm just bringing in just so hopefully everyone now can see a copy of the phone that I've got here, and also the roster screen. Okay, so broadcasting the shifts is, let me save that. So when we right click on a shift, we can use this broadcast function, and it sends a message to the phone notifying someone that there's a shift available and you're needing that filled. Now, a couple of things around the broadcasting. So once they receive that message, they'll be able to confirm or decline, and that sends a message back to the message center for the manager to then view who's accepted or declined it, and then having that list, they can then drag and drop the employee from the role screen or the sidebar onto that shift. So I'm just going to unassign this particular shift, and we'll just work with this for now. So people who receive the message when it's broadcast is anyone who has that role assigned to them to work in that particular role. And provided that they're not already rostered on another shift or have a leave entry, then those people won't get a copy of the broadcast message. However, employees that have got an unavailability on that particular day, they will still get the message. When we're doing the testing, there was people coming back saying, look, I still want people who say they're unavailable to still get notified that that shift is there because they may want it. So essentially, if we use this filter by role and show available between, anyone that's left here with the role assigned, not counting these unassigned people, but with the role here, they will then get a copy of the requested shift. So if we then right click and broadcast, so that has sent that one through. And you'll notice here, I've got a ClockOn Go message come into my message center saying that there's a shift available. It's also come up on the attendance page in the display area here where I can view the message. Or if I go into the messages section, once that's loaded, that will then show up here at the top. Before I confirm or decline, if I jump into the message center quickly and I have a look at the sent messages, oops, jumped in there. You'll see these ones that have sent it through to. So that's the list of what that broadcast message and who received that broadcast message. So you can have a quick look when you've sent out a broadcast, who's actually received that broadcast if you wanted to double check that one. Okay, so now we can come into here. So the employee goes, yep, I can work that particular day. So they can choose confirm or decline at that point, and when they close. And so that now has sent a message back to the ClockOn message center. Oops, already. So that will come through as being unread. So sorry about that. I clicked too soon. And so it'll come through and you'll have a list of people who have confirmed or declined particular shifts there. So then knowing that, we can then just move that onto a different screen and see that list. And we can now go, okay, well, I want Claire to work on that particular shift. And once we press save, We can either just reply back to that particular person and say, and that will send a notification through to the messages. Or we can come into the pending message that's just been there and the changes when you've saved it, which is here, and I can just send that message, and that's also going to send a notification there into their messages. So you can see that's the reply, and the new update that they've been rostered on that particular shift as well. So yeah, so there's no auto approve function from within the message center to say, yes, I approve that, and it automatically drops them on that shift. That's usually a pretty common question that gets asked. But using that pending messages and sending that, you can still send them that notification. So if they were unassigned, if that was sort of an unpublished shift and it did send, then that will go out to that person. But yeah, if someone was rostered on a particular shift, then it's not going to go out there. All right, so that sort of, I've gotten through it a lot quicker than I expected. So I've seen that there's some typing there. I've just got a question here. If you own a group of stores, can you broadcast shifts to different site locations? It goes from to employees. So it's going who is available for that particular role. So like I was saying, essentially on this filter by role function here. So even if I have multiple locations loaded up here at the moment, but where are we? So it's going to show this list. So if they're over different stores and you're looking at an unassigned shift for a store, only people who you've been set up, only people who have been set up will then be able to receive for that location, will be able to receive that. So I'll just jump out of the rosters here. Okay, so if we jump into the employee, so I'm just giving just some more admin access so I can see multiple locations. So if we go, okay, so under the roles and qualifications, so if I choose Claire here, so she's just has these roles assigned to her from the one location. So if I click on any of those shifts that have these roles, then she will get it. But she can be added if she's on multiple, if we've got additional locations. If she has an assigned tick for those particular roles, and also the departments for that location. So you need to make sure she's available to work within that particular location. So the departments section within ClockOn, while they're the cost centers, it also attaches a person to a location. So selecting this beauty therapy for Maribyrnong here is going to assign or make Claire available to work in that different location. So now if I click on any of the shifts for this location, then she's going to be in the list of what's being broadcast. So it's not going to broadcast everyone from another location that can't work there, only from that particular location. So I hope that helps in there. So I've got Sheree madly typing away there, but we've sort of gotten through a lot here, so I'll just answer one more question, and then if anyone's got any questions they want to ask, then yeah, by all means unmute the mic and chat. But I'll just answer this question. So if you send a shift out multiple. Yeah, so it will if multiple people, it's asked if you send a shift out and multiple people come back as being as a confirm, then yeah, you do need to use the message center to then look at who's confirmed, and then you make your appropriate judgment of who you want to work on that. Because if you've got multiple people, you may have someone that's fishing for overtime to get paid more, and there might be someone else there that hasn't had a shift all week and they're happy to work that shift, that you'll want to approve that person over the person that's overtime, just to help your sort of budget there as well. So yeah, it's definitely a choice of whoever's rostering and who can see it. Oh, one more thing I should say. So if you're doing the rostering, you've obviously got an admin tick for the department so you can see those people. Provided you've got an admin tick next to someone's default department, you will see their messages come through on the message center. So if you're an administrator and you can see all of the departments, you will see all of the to and froing through the message center. So it's broken down. If you've got an admin for a department, you're going to see all of those notifications for everyone. If you do get a group of people that have confirmed or declined, you can send out a new message and reply to multiple people on that. So you can tick a number of people that you want to send that through. Just sort of the roster type just helps with the subject and some filtering. And you can do, you know, so, and then you can send that message out, and it's just going to send to those couple of people that you've selected on that one. Melanie's just asked if time permits, can we look at roster budgeting tool? I can get real basic into that, just because there's a lot to it. So what I'll do is I'll open it up and show you how to get into it and a couple of the features. But it is been requested a lot since I've sent out this email about the webinar. So it's definitely going to be one that I'm going to heavily focus on in the future. But let's have a quick look at it now. So just going to come to the budget tab here. If we go to calculate and click on the roster costs, it's then going to show, and I'm just going to change this view here to medium. So it gives you a breakdown here on the rosters of the period and each department. And if you expand down each department, it shows you a per day here. And we've also got this payslip function here, so we can have a look and a breakdown at each person. So I'm just going to expand this a little bit wider. Of any paid breaks, normal hours, any overtime person's getting, the role breakdowns or special rates that we've done. And in this case, it's showing long service leave accrual, annual leave accruals, sick leave accruals, and the super amount that they would get on that particular shift. Now we can also have a look at the shifts themselves, and we can see where the penalty times are kicking, well, that there is a penalty time kicking in for the length of time and where they are. And as if we scroll sort of to the right and down here, we can see which ones are getting overtime as well in there. Also with the budgets here, we can change what we're looking at in this particular screen. So at this point, I'm looking at the gross hours, the allowances that have been assigned to a particular shift. So that may be, in this case, we've got a Garmin allowance here and a team allowance, and that might be whatever sorts of allowances that your staff get depending on the shifts. And I'm also showing the leave accruals as well. So it's giving the hours of accruals. Now, some people just want to see total hours worked and leave taken from a period. And you'll see that changing various things will change this wage and dollar amount, and also the hours here that we're seeing depending on what is being enabled. So pick I guess, a cost theory or how you're going to do that, and stick to it, because that way it's going to make your roster budgets more consistent as well. Yeah, so yeah, there was another question there. Does the roster cost include the super long service leave and annual leave? So yeah, it really does depend on what you've got selected in here. So this is what's accrued. So these are the accruals for that particular period. The super is what super they would earn based on sort of the dummy payroll it runs. It's going to be far more accurate at payroll time. But this is going to look at if this particular allowance does be included in the super earnings base, then that super is going to allow this allowance. Periodic allowances, they're in there. They're the ones that are for a particular period base. So if they work, every fortnight, they get so much Garmin allowance for that period, whereas the shift ones are looking specifically at only for the hours worked on that particular shift. So you may want to have both of those turned on and off as well. And yes, that super amount, if these two go into their super earnings base, that's also what is going to do it. It doesn't show, these are gross hours as well, and not net amounts in there. Now you can also save budgets. So if you do this and you want to save a budget, so the budgets are really snapshot when the time is calculated. So if we then do a calculation at the end of the week, it's going to be different from what we've done at the start of the week, because you may have adjusted shifts, people have changed. So if you're done your budget, come through and print out a roster budget and save that. So then you can come back and do a comparison on those roster budgets at the end of the period as well. But you can also load up multiple budgets and as well in periods that you've loaded. So once you start getting a list of those periods, we might have a couple there. Oops, and I want to load. And it will give you a comparison between the two different periods of what they were as well. Some other things you can do with this sales figure on the budgets is you can have these as either a sales target, or it could be a fixed wage amount that you're trying to stay to. So if say it's a fixed wage amount, so it might be 45, 15,000 we're trying to stay to, it'll give you what percentage it is over the side. And we can also put, I don't want it to go over 100%. And anything that does go over to the 100% will show in red. Now, if you put a time at the top, it just evenly splits it on everything below. So you can then go through and make changes to your budgets to get them more accurate of what you're expecting things to be. Well, not 200, 2000. And so there you can see which ones are going over, which ones are going under, what days they're going over as well, in those balances. And then balancing out your budget itself, that there's a couple of things. So if we come in here to Claire, coming to the view, if I use the timeline with Zoom, it's a good one to have a look at. Now, for here, so there's 2.5 hours here of overtime. So I can hover on the end here and I can bring that in to reduce that shift so there's no overtime on that particular shift. And that's going to update real time on the budgets. The other one could be, if I don't want to do that, I can come into the employees and go, well, Claire's already getting overtime, she's working too much. I can use my filter by roles and my show available between to see who else is available to work on that particular shift. And I can drag and drop that person on to that shift as well. And so using these rates and hours, which is showing their rostered versus their expected hours here, we can make smarter decisions about who we're rostering on those particular shifts. So come here, if we select on this one, this person's earning $17 an hour for that particular shift. We need to make some changes in our budgets. This person earns $12. So we can choose someone else on that particular shift. So using information based around here on the hours worked and what they're expected and their pay rates, and also having a look at when particular shifts are kicking into overtime or penalties, you can now make adjustments to those budgets and it will update in real time what happens there with the dollar figures as well. There was just a question, not using the clock on and off feature within the app. Yes, you can turn that off. So if I just close out of rosters, that's done within the security role function. So if I close out of there, so each employee is assigned a security role. By default, it's normally employee or employee restricted. That was a bad choice. So employee or employee restricted. So have a quick check of who's on what security roles there are. And then we can come into the setup and under security roles. So we go to employee, we can turn on and off feature to allow that clocking on and off. So if we turn that off, we can save. And I think my one's just loading. Clock on now, sorry, won't be a second. No, I'll just double check. I've probably picked the wrong security role for the one that my phone's connected for. Timesheet leave officer. Allow clocking on off. And also with the security roles in here, you can change what they can and can't see. So you might then want them to see their entitlements, but only their annual leave maybe and any time in lieu that they've got, but not others. You can give access to them to be able to change various details if you allow them to request leave or not, or request shifts or unavailability. And if you don't want a particular group of staff to actually use ClockOn Go at all, you can turn off their access to it as well. So I'll just let that one save and finally load this one in. And you can see now on, even though it still says attendance, but it's just the dashboard now with the messages and the roster. There's no more clocking on and off function within the app for that particular employee. So they can still go in there, get to their messages and timesheets as well, and see that. Before, when I was talking about the split shifts, which just prompted me to remember, I added that general note in on that particular shift. So that now shows down the bottom in here. It doesn't, unfortunately, and it's sort of been mentioned to development, but with the rosters screen, if we look on that particular day, once it's loaded, it just shows the total shift there, not the split of the shift. If they request unavailability in the system, it's going to send a message, and you just need to approve it, and it adds into the system automatically. So with the unavailability, it's all done. All requests are done through the message center. And so with the unavailability, we can just add one in here, choose the type, whatever the request is. They can put in their start and end dates of that unavailability, and put in a message of that and send that through. If you've got a lot of questions about the ClockOn Go, on our knowledge base here, so from ClockOn Go itself, if you click on any of these help icons, it will go into the knowledge base. And once you're in there, if you come onto the getting started and click on these quick start guides, there is a good ClockOn Go quick start guide here, which has got something that you can send to your staff as well. And I'm in the process of getting a message center one together for the managers, but you can send this, download it, send it to your staff, and it's got all the functions about how to view rosters, how to clock times, how to send different request types, viewing timesheets, and getting copies of your pay slips. So that can be a good one that you can use to send out to all of your staff as well. Leave requests are slightly different. So with the leave requests, let's just jump in. So I will just change this. Okay, let's just. All right. For the leave requests, you can select the types of leave that they can approve from the system setup. So annual leave, for instance, and I just want to add leave for the 19th. And send that through. And so with the leave requests that have come through, if we go into the message center, an unavailability request will show up like this. We just click the action on that one, and we can either approve or decline it. It's usually going to be just approve. You can send back a message to them. And that will have added it to their employee. Under their unavailability, so the 27th. And they'll just come through as unavailable requests that have come through actually from the web portal. For the leave requests, similar sort of way, it has a bit more information on this side. When we action the leave request, we've got a bit more information on that. So we can have a look at their current balance, their total requested hours for the period that they've requested, and also what their leave balance would be if you were to payroll them with that. So it's having a look at. So if it's far enough in the future, all of that may change. It's just a snapshot at this time. It works the same way when you change a shift on the roster to leave, and you get whether you get a red calendar or a blue calendar to say it's requested. And here you can send a message back to the employee, and you can also put a timesheet note if you need to add a general note in onto that timesheet. So if you've got multiple people approving requests, you can just sort of put that in and it'll add it into those timesheets of the requests. So once we've approved that, we can then go back into the roster screen and it will have loaded those leave requests into the rosters. And you can see here, they're the leave requests that have been added in on there. Now, in this case, a couple of them fall on public holidays. So you would just need to do a quick double check on those two. So I've just held control and highlighted them both. And you'd want to just change these ones into be public holidays. So it's not drawing from any of their leave accruals. All right. Thank you so much for your time. If I missed any questions, I think Cherie got onto most of them. So yeah, so if you've got any issues, questions with support, just email through to support@clockon.com.au. If you're after any additional training, just email through to education@clockon.com.au. And I will be publishing this to our website, and I'll send you all a link if you need to or want to share that to others as well in the future about that, but you'll be able to come back to that from time to time. My next one's planned for the Wednesday before the Easter period, so a week earlier than usually, trying to keep these to the end of each month for the last week, but I will be, as that leave request said, camping. So I'll be doing it the week before, and that one's going to be based on timesheets and the timesheet approval process as well. So hopefully we'll save you some time doing those timesheets. Thank you so much to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I really appreciate you all spending the time to check it out. Oh, one more thing. I'll be sending an email out afterwards with a link to just a survey with just some information so I can get some feedback. It'll help me continue to put these forward to my boss to make sure that I can continue to do them, and also give me some ideas for future topics. So if you could fill them out and get them back, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.